The wait is finally over, Leafs fans. Auston Matthews signed on the dotted line. Justin Pooney, Albert Vartan. Albert, he did it, finally. I was expecting this to drag out to like training camp, but he signed 4 years, 13.25 million per season. Albert, he announced it himself, and
Yeah.
let me get your perspective on this. So when I saw him tweet out, I'm like, what type of cryptic thing is this? Is he just at first I thought it was like a troll that somebody hacked his account, or it was one of the somebody paid for Twitter Blue that kind of made a fake Matthews account. But then we saw the Friedman tweet. So what was going through your mind when you saw all that stuff break down?
Well, I didn't see it. I was driving home from the studio
Yeah.
and I heard it on the radio. And when the guy said it, I'm like, there's no way. Why would Auston Matthews tweet that? So I thought the same thing you did. I'm like, I thought he got hacked. When I heard the number, especially like 4 years, 13.25, there's no chance, because I thought the whole time he was going to sit out and wait until he got at least 14. I feel like he could have demanded what he wanted. But anyway, so I heard it over the radio, and I'm like, that's a pretty good deal. I mean, a lot of people are saying overpay, but you got to think about the Leafs. Like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, really. They have to pay him. You can't let him go. No one lets go of 60 goal scorers. So listen, 4 years, 13.25. It's actually 5 years. He's got the last year on his deal, which is this season. I don't actually think it's that bad.
Yeah, I think the AAV is great at 13.25. Like you said, he could have got 14, probably 14 plus on the open market. This guy's one of the top three players. He's one of the top three players on planet Earth, right? The 4 years kind of, again, you can't think about it too far ahead, but this is what Frank Seravalli reported, that, you know, Matthews' camp was not willing to go past 4 years, right? The Leafs, of course, wanted to go longer, stretch it up, but Matthews and his camp were very adamant that, hey, this is going to be a 4 year term. And it's smart on Auston Matthews' part because he continues to control the leverage, right? He has the Toronto Maple Leafs basically in the palm of his hand. He says, you know what? Okay, I only got a few years left of my deal. Maybe I'll do something else. So what did you think about the term and the actual dollar amount? I know you kind of touched on it briefly, but the term, does that scare you at all?
No, I mean, he's going to be what, 30, 31 at the end of the
31,
deal?
yeah.
He wants to cash in again. The cap's going to go up. So, you know, once the cap reaches what it's supposed to reach, I don't know what that number is. The 13.25 is not going to seem like that much. So I understand what he wants to do. He's never going to sign an 8-year deal. It didn't work for – I don't think it really worked for him. Probably didn't work for the Leafs either. So by the time he's 31, he can sign another deal. Now it gives the Leafs like essentially a 4-year window, right, to win. I mean,
do you think that
probably resign maybe at the end of it? I don't see it happening, but I see it as, here's a 4-year window. I'm going to stay here. Let's do whatever it takes to make it happen. Let's be honest. He left some money on the table, which I'm very surprised at.
He did. Now, he is the highest paid player in the league, so it's not like he's making out with nothing. He's now reset the market.
No, but just at the same time, like, McKinnon signed that deal in what, 2017?
Yeah, for 12.6.
Yeah. So McKinnon's next deal, he's going to blow past that, right? And so not McKinnon, sorry, McDavid. McDavid signed his deal in 2017, right? So you got to look at it in that perspective. The cap has changed so much since then. But for Auston Matthews and the Leafs, I mean, this is a good deal. I just want to know now what happens with, you know, William Nylander. What happens with Mitch Marner when his deal is up? Because he's going to want more money, but there's no chance he's going to be making more than Auston Matthews.
That's the biggest question now, Albert, is like, okay, so now you know you got Matthews, like you said, 5 years, 4 more years after this year at 13.25. That's a big chunk of your cap, right? And we already know the Leafs are still over the cap as currently constructed. So now when I look at it, right, because we heard, you know, I was scrolling through Twitter this morning, you heard that, you know, William Nylander said he wants to be in Toronto. He wants to remain a Leaf. The contract situation will take care of himself.
He said that today?
He said that today, yeah. Elliot Friedman tweeted out some snippets of it and stuff like that. So what I'm interested – when I saw the Matthews contract, right, I mean, the first thing that thought to my mind is, okay, the Leafs got him locked in, under contract, but that means William Nylander's out of town now. It has to – it's just a numbers game, right, at this particular moment. Like, you still got Tavares on 11. I highly doubt they're going to get rid of a Toronto-born kid in Mitch Marner, right? Say what you will about him. I know our guy James Sharp is the biggest Marner fan, but to me, it just seems that it's now time and it's now the right situation for them to move off William Nylander.
I think so. Listen, I keep saying, is William Nylander worth $10 million? I think so. Can the Leafs afford to pay him $10 million? Absolutely not. So it's got to be 8.5, 9 million in and around that range. Who just got? Who was it on the Hurricanes who just got a deal? Aho?
Sebastian Aho. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was it? 9 million? 8.5, 9 million?
9 something. Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at the numbers, very similar players. You can even like maybe lean towards Aho a bit. So that's where I see William Nylander. But if he goes somewhere else, can he get 10 million? Probably. With the Leafs, I don't think he's worth it. But I want to reiterate, just to Leafs fans, this Matthews deal, no matter what anyone else says, all the trolls on Twitter or X, wherever it's called, commenting on Elliot Friedman and commenting on Auston Matthews' post, it's not an overpay. $4 million, 13.25 is a win for the Toronto Maple Leafs. You have to expect that going into that thing that he would want at least 14 million. 13.25 over 4 years for a 60-goal scorer with the cap expected to go up significantly is a win for this Leafs team.
I agree. Look, the questions I've sent to you how many times now? Like after they got bowed out of the playoffs by Florida, all right, well, okay, does Matthews really want to be? Remember, there was kind of like that. He didn't really he committed, but didn't really commit to Toronto. And then, there's always been the rumors that, he might move back to Arizona or whatever. Or I never really believed the Arizona rumors. I always thought that, he could go to a big city like Chicago or LA or New York like that, right? But look, he plays in the one of, if not the biggest hockey market in the world. He's the biggest star there. But the pressure now is still on these guys because you mentioned they opened up. Their window's still open, but you now for another 4 years with Auston Matthews in his prime, right? Barring injury, you need to at least make a conference finals, Albert, in this situation. Now,
I agree. And that's what a lot of people are on. Listen, he's a regular season performer, similar to Marner. He's not doing enough or as enough as he should in the playoffs. I'm 100% in agreement. He has to do more in the playoffs, not just him, the team in general. I mean, this deal is based on it's based on what he's done in the regular season with the hope that when it comes to playoff time, he's going to overperform, which we haven't seen yet from him in the playoffs. Let's be honest.
And when you look at the guys that he's now had in salary, all those guys have gone deeper in the playoffs than him, right? Whether that's been McDavid, going to the Western Conference Finals, McKinnon winning a Stanley Cup, right? Yeah. Jack Eichel's now won a Stanley Cup, and he's a $10 million player. So the guys that Matthews is in that upper echelon with, they've all been farther in the playoffs, and that's what the barometer of success for Auston Matthews is. Look, we cannot deny. He had a bit of a slow season this year, but he's one of the best, if not the best, pure goal scorer in the entire game. Right? I need to see the playoffs. That is where this contract is going to live up to its standing. Right? He is the highest paid player now in the NHL. That comes with a certain amount of expectations, Albert, where he has to answer to them. Not only is that in the playoffs, but that's also in a leadership role, I feel, right? And we've always kind of, questioned about what's the leadership dynamic in the Leafs locker room. Like Ryan O'Reilly came in, he was a big personality, but then he didn't want to play here anymore. John Tavares is the captain, but we don't consider him that raw captain leadership type. With Auston Matthews now signed to the biggest contract, the biggest AAV in the NHL, I need to see him take ownership of that Maple Leaf on his sweater. I'm not saying he has to be the captain, but he has to put himself front and center in a major leadership role for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, as good as this Leafs team can be, it comes down to him. They go as far as he goes. That's basically what it is. When you're paying a guy that, you need him to be a leader. You need him to score those goals. But listen, if he settles for 35, 40 goals in a regular season, but turns it on in the playoffs, and ends up taking him to a conference final or Stanley Cup, then I think Leafs fans will settle for that. And listen, I'm going to keep going back to the number. I still can't believe this guy took 13.25. How much shit did Kyle Dubas get over the years for overpaying these players? If you put Kyle Dubas in this position and Brad Treliving's position, I would think Matthews is probably getting at least 14, maybe 15 million.
Do you think with the uncertainty of the cap, because we expect it to go up, but we just don't know how much it's going to go up and for how many years it's going to, it's going to take to get to that point. So Matthews becomes the highest paid player. Again, some team would have given him 14 million. Now, would that have been a good team if he hit the open market? Probably not, right? But a team that is contending to win, I don't think anybody has a feasible amount to pay him $14 million a season. So he still got over 13 million, right? He's
Yeah.
gonna have, he became the highest paid player, um, and he answered a lot of questions. But I just the 4 years scares me because you have 4 years now to make this work. Because in 4 years' time, we're gonna have these same questions if they don't win,
Well, it's true,
right?
but you could see what Tree Living is doing, bringing in the
Yeah.
players that he did. Ryan Reeves, Max Domi, Tyler Bertuzzi. I think they have like 12 UFAs at the end of the season,
Yeah.
which
They
is going to open
signed
a
them
lot
all
of
to
cap
1 year
space.
deals.
But
Yeah.
this team is being built right now for the first time in a very long time for the playoffs. Maybe the first time was at the deadline in this past season, where you really saw what they're trying to do, a clear strategy. We need to build this team for the playoffs. We need to bring in some tougher players. And they did that with Ryan Reeves, obviously a locker room guy. Tyler Bertuzzi, he shows that he can perform, and he plays that spicy type of hockey, whatever term these hockey insiders and analysts use. Max Domi, his pops played here. He's a tough guy. He's going to want to, play for the shirt because, he grew up here. And I think come deadline time, maybe they're going to add another piece. This whole regular season now is based on building chemistry around this team, get to the deadline, maybe add another piece or two, and make a push in the playoffs. So I think the Leafs now have a clear direction of where they want to go. And getting Matthews done now, August 23rd, by the way, getting it done this early is actually really impressive. I was expecting like a day before training camp, and the first day of training camp, all the cameras are there. Auston Matthews is there answering questions, yada, yada, yada. But the fact that they got this done early shows me that they truly have a clear plan. Also shows me that Auston Matthews is all in.
Well, it also I want to know how much Shane Doan had to do with this contract extension.
Oh yeah, Donor
he was brought in to be assistant to Brad Tree Living. So I want to know how much he had to it, that flight to Arizona. But you did mention a good point. The fact that they got this done on August 23rd. And remember, throughout this whole time, we were talking to our good friend Chris Johnson of North Star Bets, and he was saying that, remember, guys, Nathan McKinnon signed in the fall, right, in a similar situation. It dragged out for a minute. So, be patient.
Too, right? Pasternak was
Pasternak too,
right?
Yeah, signed it during the season. The fact that the Leafs got this done before training camp, because we know the media was going to ask this question so much every single day, right? And they went on a losing streak. Okay, how does this affect the contract situation? What does this mean? The fact that they got this done, nipped in the butt, and we're very quiet about it. It was smart business by Brad Tree Living, smart business by the Toronto Maple Leafs, and good on Auston Matthews for breaking it himself. That you see that a lot in the NBA where players control their own narratives. I like what he's doing right there. He's taking control of it. And then, the insiders come out. So very smart on Auston Matthews, very smart by the Toronto Maple Leafs. And he's a very rich man still.
Dude, could you imagine, first day of training camp and they still didn't have Auston Matthews or William Nylander signed? That's the first season. It's all talk towards that. And that would hurt the team. So this is why it also shows me Matthews is that, we talked about, okay, what is this upcoming extension for Matthews going to tell us about Auston Matthews? One, it was either he's extremely greedy and he just wants all the money he can possibly get, or two, he's still going to get paid, but now it shows us, I think, that he's more of a team guy than maybe some of us thought he was.
Yeah, no, I agree 1,000%. He could have been greedy. He could have taken, you said he could have held up for 14. He took 13.25, which is not too bad. But now you look at it, next season, William Nylander's UFA, Bertuzzi, Domi, all that. Mitch Marner, John Tavares both have 2 years left on their deal. So now you have Matthews locked up for the foreseeable future. You assume that John Tavares contract will come off the books, and you assume that Marner is going to get an extension as well. So let's see. Let's see what happens with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Again, big day. Auston Matthews signs a 4-year extension. 13.25 AAV. 34 is staying in the blue and white. Big day for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Big day for the world of hockey, Albert. We will talk about this again, I'm certain, when you're back in studio on Friday. And I'll be covering some more of it tomorrow on the Homestand Studio. So stick around, everybody, and make sure you keep it locked on Homestand for all sports content.